Andrew, what were the highlights for Q1?
Well, the overriding feeling is that Q1 was a solid quarter and the market can feel confident with the start to the year, particularly when you consider that take-up in Q4 last year had flattened off from an otherwise healthy 2014. Overall, take-up for the quarter was 16.3 megawatts. Now that's 25% of total take-up for last year, so that's pretty good. Frankfurt was the real highlight. It secured 8.3 megawatts of take-up in the quarter, which accounted for half of total take-up in the big 5 cities. And interestingly, it was the second highest quarterly figure for Frankfurt in the last 7 years.
You pick out Frankfurt. Why was this market so successful?
Well, Frankfurt's seen steady growth in take-up year on year for each of the last 5 years, and that proves it's going from strength to strength. I think that Germany's financial size, coupled with its stricter interpretation of the EU Data Privacy Directive, is drawing in IT and tech companies looking at hosting in Europe. And this, coupled with Frankfurt's position as a really strong connectivity hub and its strategic geographic location, do make it an attractive market for cloud and IT infrastructure demand, similar really to what we've seen in Amsterdam over the last 2 or 3 years.
London had a weak quarter. Was this a surprise given the consistency of Frankfurt and also Amsterdam?
Yeah, it did have a weak quarter. There was 2.4 megawatts of take-up in London, which means that 3 of the last 4 quarters have seen take-up under 3 megawatts. Now, Amsterdam, by contrast, had a fantastic 2014, and it had 3 consecutive quarters above 4.5 megawatts of take-up. But don't underestimate London. It accounts for 40% of total let co-location capacity out of the big 5 cities in Europe. And you might argue that London has been a victim of its own success, because at the moment it also accounts for over half of vacant co-location capacity in all of those big cities.
Finally, we can't escape the news of Equinix gatecrash in the Telecity and Interaction merger. Can we get your feelings on this?
Absolutely. We've been predicting industry consolidation for a couple of years now, and it's well and truly happening. It really started with NTT's purchase of eShelter in March. That was an $830 million transaction. Equinix's bid for Telecity certainly has the potential to shape the data centre industry, both in Europe and beyond. I imagine that the US co-location companies that have been looking for a vehicle with which to expand their offerings into Europe will be busy considering their options now, because once Telecity and Interaction go, there aren't many other pan-European retailers out there. And I think we can expect more twists and turns in the story before our next quarterly update.